Hey everybody, it's Dick here. Today I'm on the Triumph Trident 660. It's a 660cc 3-cylinder liquid-cooled engine. It's got 80 brake horsepower at 10,250 RPM. It's got 64 Newton meters of torque at 6,250 RPM. That's 45.72 foot-pounds of torque, if that's your persuasion. It's electronically fuel-injected with an electronic throttle control, quasi-TFT display. Seat height is 805 millimeters, which is a surprisingly high 31.69 inches. It is a 6-speed, chain-driven final drive with a wet multiplate slip and assist clutch. It's got a steel tubular frame, it's got a twin-sided steel swing arm, cast aluminum wheels, 17 inches on the front and the back, 41 millimeter upside down Showa forks at the front, and a Showa monoshock with preload adjustment at the back. Nissan twin piston sliding calipers on the front and a single piston sliding caliper by Nissan on the back. It's got a stainless steel 3-into-1 header system with a low single-sided stainless steel silencer, which comes off of a small toaster of a catalytic converter tucked underneath the frame. It weighs 189 kilograms, which is 416 pounds. It's 10 kilograms lighter than the Street Twin. It has a very squat 1401 millimeter wheelbase, which is 55 inches for those who are interested. And it has a 14-liter tank. Confused as always by the Triumph marketing folks. I didn't know what to make of the ghost bike teaser images that they had sent out. I didn't know if it was insensitive or just ignorant. That followed up with the masked camouflage bike so as not to give away what the bike was, but it had Triumph logos as the camouflage and hashtag Trident on the tank, so I'm not really sure what they were going for with quasi pseudo camo and hashtags announcing what it was. But despite the confusing nature of their marketing pregame, I remained curious about this bike. Let's take this puppy for a ride.
Hey everybody, it's Dick here. I'm on the new Trident 660 by Triumph. Since I saw the social media hints of the white ghost bike back during the first lockdown of the pandemic, I was secretly curious about this bike. My favorite bike is a 650 inline 4, and I did have a Yamaha triple a while back. Shakedown has a triple. So I am always curious about the gurgle of the triple, and I do love the XSR 900 triple. I've never really gotten into the speed triples and the street triples by Triumph just because of the styling, I think, and the more sporty stance. So when they made this quasi-sports, quasi-heritage version of a triple, I was curious. And I thought, ooh, maybe that's the bike I've been looking for. So I finally had the opportunity to take one out. This is still being broken in. So I was told not to go over 5,000 RPMs, but the rev counter is starting to blink at me at 4,000 RPMs. And I don't know if it's just saying, hey, you're coming close to 5,000 RPMs, or don't ride over 4,000 RPMs. I'm keeping an eye on that, and I think it's a bit annoying. But it's also been helpful for people who haven't broken bikes in before and aren't watching their RPM. But the other thing is, it reminds me a bit of that red light on the KTM 390 that I was riding. Or not the KTM 390, what was the Husqvarna? I always mess up the name of that. The Husky 401, which is the KTM 390 repackaged. And that stupid red light during break-in kept telling me to back off when the engine was telling me to go more. So now that I'm aware it's a break-in feature, I can be a bit more forgiving about it. Hey, look at that valley. What do you think of that valley, everybody? Anyway, I was curious about this bike, and I interviewed a subscriber / new friend in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, who had pre-ordered one without even test riding one, and was waiting for months and months and months and months for his to arrive, and finally picked it up. And I checked it with him this morning and said, what do you think? He said it's awesome. So I kind of am playing hooky a little bit, and I'm taking this thing out for a demo without actually planning it. Luckily, it's a weekday, everyone else is working for a living, and I have been able to get a demo without a pre-booking. I tend not to do lots of research about my bikes before I demo ride them. I tend to get to know the bike on the bike because I want it to tell me about itself. It's like a first date. And some first dates are bad, and some first dates are great, and some first dates turn into a one-night stand, and then you propose the next morning, and you end up having a new bike in your garage. But you know, most first dates start out rocky because you're just starting to get to know each other, and there's some first impressions that you get that may or may not color or taint the rest of the date. And for me, my first impressions of getting on this bike was I was really surprised at how light it is. It's so light. Part of me thinks it's concerningly light. I don't know. I like a gal with a bit of junk in her trunk, so I need birthing hips. So I'm still, the wafiness of this gal is a bit unnerving to me. It kind of reads a bit more like the KTM 390 or a Yamaha than a Triumph. It kind of feels budget. Now I know it's budget. I know it is budget. But it kind of feels and looks budget. The wheelbase is incredibly small. The front wheel is very twitchy. And the fueling, I know Radar's gonna make fun of me for it, but the fueling is very, very responsive. And I think that has something to do with the triple. You do need to control that throttle, or you could find yourself doing a little rodeo ride on it. Which I find interesting because this is being sold as kind of a entry-level bike. And I always wonder why the fueling on entry-level bikes are twitchy. This 660 is definitely punching above its weight in terms of torque and immediate power. It definitely feels more like an 800. So that's quite impressive right off the bat and a nice first impression. It's this kind of weird, it doesn't, I know it's supposed to go up against, what was it? It was supposed to be the bike to answer the CB650R and the Yamaha 700, whatever it is, XSR 700 or the MT-07. Those bikes don't come to mind when I'm riding it. Like I wouldn't say, oh, you know, I'm in the market for those other bikes, and I get on this and go, oh yeah, this is just like that. It's a bit tamer than the 700, the Yamaha. The 700 is just a beast. It's just really, really raw and immediate. This is even though the power is here and there's kind of this immediate acceleration, it's a bit more tame. I don't get that kind of uncontrolled fear I got on the 700. The CB650R is so much more refined. That's a 4-cylinder, that's an inline 4. And that's so much more of a grown-up bike. So I can't imagine, this does not feel like on the same level of quality and value. Well, maybe not value, but quality, refinedness as the Honda. So if I were to rate them, it would probably go in terms of engine size. It would go the 4-cylinder, the 3-cylinder, and the 2-cylinder. Where this is definitely feels more like a Japanese bike. It does not feel like the refined Triumphs that have come out or that I've ridden in the past couple of years. That being said, it's really, really awesome on these twisty roads. And the short wheelbase, which feels twitchy in town and on straight lines, on this is just, you just flick it around these turns. And it's just wildly fun and controllable. I thought when I first got on it that it would be a bit uncontrollable, but it's really controllable on these roads. It's very squat. It almost feels a bit like my old Ducati Monster 696, where the headlight disappears in front of you and you just kind of trust that the bike is underneath you. The tank from the side looks round, and bulbous and kind of voluptuous, like the Heritage tanks on the Bonnevilles. But when you get on top of it, it's definitely a severe teardrop shape, which is good for getting your knees around and kind of tucking down behind the bike. But I find it's not as attractive when sitting on it. It's only attractive on the side. When sitting on it, it's kind of like, oh, am I on an Indian-made KTM? The instrument clusters and the buttons are all very Japanese, stock bin. These mirrors are f***ing ugly. I can see why John immediately replaced them with bar end mirrors. I think just a nice Bonneville styled round Mickey Mouse ear mirror would be really nice on this, because it would match the round dial and it would match the round headlight. So I don't really know what these quasi Street Fighter bullshit mirrors are. Okay, I just pulled out without even looking. And I can't find the horn. There it is. I went to hit the horn and I don't know what it is. There is an M mode here. I wonder if there are modes on this bike. I wasn't told about any modes. But there's an M button here now that I'm searching for the horn, which is you know, I complain about Honda horns. I complain about Honda horns for being this big button where the indicator should be. This horn is almost like the Yamaha XSR, where it's this tiny little button on the bottom, and you kind of have to. Oh, there's even a little kind of ledge that you hit first before you find the horn, and that horn sounds very wimpy. Anyway, I love these millstones here. I totally want a millstone. I'm dying to find a millstone. So yeah, it feels like the levers, again, they're a bit stock binny. Not a bit stock binny. They're cheap levers. There's adjustability on the brake lever, but there's no adjustability on the clutch lever. I am notoriously short. I'm about 5'7". I tell people I'm 5'8". I told Fanny I was 5'8" when I met her. Luckily she's 5'6.5", so she believed me. But even for me, I have a 30-inch inseam. So I'm kind of equally torso and legs. And where the foot pegs are and where the gear selector is, I'm a bit squat in it. I'm a bit kind of crunched up in it. The handlebars are the perfect length for me to have the kind of reasonably upright riding position. So I do like the length of the bike, and I do like the rise of the bars. The seat is hard. The seat is very hard. I guess they didn't do the 11 millimeters more foam in this seat that they put on the new Bonnevilles for the update. The seat's hard. Suspension's stiff. Got Showa forks in the front. I'm not sure what's in the back. I'll have to look. Very, very punchy. I love how punchy this engine feels. This engine is a peach so far. And these brakes are fantastic. I noticed that most of the, starting in third on a hill, perfectly fine. Yeah, I just started in third on about a 15% grade, and the bike pulled away perfectly fine. That's interesting. Anywho, what was I saying? I noticed that Triumph is trying to spec Brembos, at least on the front of most of their bikes, where people can see the name of the brake. And it's, sorry, blind summon, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to kill myself and someone else. And I noticed that this one didn't have it. This one had the Nissan brakes, and I had raised it with a Triumph rep, and they said, yeah, we're trying to keep the price of the bike down. And they're very upfront about that. So some of the budget feel of the bike is a product of them making a reasonably priced bike compared to at least their other models. I mean, their other entry-level bike is the Street Twin, which is over $8,000. So we can appreciate that Triumph is trying to get newer riders away from the Japanese brands. And I think definitely for a newer rider who's looking to get themselves in a bit of trouble, this bike could definitely get them in a bit of trouble. I am a relatively experienced rider. I've been riding for 21 years on a variety of bikes. And the past couple of years, except for this pandemic, I ride pretty much daily. And I'm always surprised when I get on a, quote, entry-level bike and find myself trying to keep up with it. So, you know, I don't really buy the whole entry-level bike segment. I just think smaller displacement engines tend to get lower insurance premiums for newer riders or younger riders, and that's a way to get them into it, you know. And A2 licensing in the UK and the EU, you can put in A2, or I wonder if this is A2 without a restrictor. But gosh, this engine is so punchy, so punchy. Luckily, I've been given permission to go out for a couple of hours on this. On the Street Cup that I have, I did a tour to Scotland with Shakedown, and I found that I was getting pain in my left knee because of the foot peg position and the gear selector position. And that's less squat than this rider position. So I'm wondering what a couple of hours on this will do to me. The fact that I can't see the bike under me while I'm riding is always a bit concerning to me because, one, it gives me a sense of confidence that it's there. But two, I like looking at the features. I like looking at the appointments of it. And because I thought this thing was it looked a bit cheap, not seeing it and just experiencing it for its ride, as if I'm a blind man going on a roller coaster. This is a thrilling roller coaster. It's pretty thrilling. I think it's not one of the bikes that, if I bought one, it's not one of the bikes where I probably would spend a lot of time staring at it when I took the key out of it and put it in the garage and walked away from it. Well, but it would probably be one of the ones, if I was doing roads like this, where I would grab the keys of it before another bike. And I gotta say, I'm in 5th gear, and the gearing, I think, is pretty lovely on this, because I'm in 5th gear, about 4,000 RPM, you know, about 45 miles an hour. And it felt like on these roads, on my BMW, I'm usually in 3rd gear, around 4,000 RPM, and I can do like 50, 55 on it. But you kind of feel like you're in between gears. Where the 5th gear on these roads, 50 miles an hour, 4,000 RPM, is perfect. It feels like 3rd gear, and that twitchiness on the throttle that I was criticizing earlier has turned into responsiveness. Yeah, this is fun. This is a fun little engine and bike. Still no pain in my left knee, but I have this kind of phantom pain that I'm expecting. It's just anticipated pain, but it's not there yet, so I have to be honest with you. The seat is hard as a rock. A little bit of vibration at 4,000 RPM, a little over 4,500 RPM, 5th gear in the throttle hand. A little bit in the pegs, but not upsettingly so. And the seat's so hard that I would think I would get it up in my taint, but I'm not getting any in my taint. This gearbox is kind of nice too. It just clicks into place. Oh, and you can just dip this thing. Yeah. What is that, 16-inch front wheel? So a little vibiness 3,500 RPM. Nothing under 4,000 RPM. I'm not allowed to go over 5,000 RPM, even though it's blinking at me at 4,000 RPM. But what I like about this triple is that, what I like about most triples is that it really it engine brakes like old twins. So you don't have to spend a lot of time on your brake, which is probably a good thing, because the brake pedal, you have to kind of tip your toe in a little bit. I have size 10 UK shoes, so not giant feet compared to the rest of my, it's probably kind of proportioned to the rest of my body. And I have to lift my foot up and pigeon toe in to get that brake. It's not as upsetting. Wow. Yeah, this is fun. I'm riding a lot faster on these roads on this bike than I've been doing on my BMW, which is an 800. I just feel a lot more confident on this bike for some reason. I'm going to go over cattle grid now at speed, 6th gear, 4,000 RPM, 50 miles an hour. Let's see if I die. A little harsh over that. Ooh, that rear suspension just kind of pogoed me up a little bit. But I didn't feel squirrely on it. I think we may have found where we're gonna do the walk around. I forgot about this view.
If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.